Moving to our next game, Lord of the Rings Gollum, which released last week. This released May 25th across current and last-gen platforms, including the Nintendo Switch. Published and developed by Daedalic Entertainment, it is designed in Unreal Engine 4. It's identified as an action-adventure, story-rich, let me accentuate that, story-rich game. We'll talk about why that's significant in a moment. And yes, we do have some gameplay. This is recorded on the Corsair One Pro A200 using an AMD Ryzen 9 5950X 16-core CPU, base clock 3.4 gigahertz, 64 gigabytes of RAM, and an NVIDIA RTX 3080 Ti 12 gigabyte GDDR6X on the VRAM there. Let's talk about the story for a moment. In this game, it is the year 3017 during the Third Age, 66 years after Bilbo Baggins in the Misty Mountain obtained the precious, the One Ring from Gollum, or if you ask Gollum, he stole it. There is a flashback to when Gollum was in Mordor, and in the gameplay you're seeing right now, this is during that flashback. He is a slave in the mines of Mordor, though at the beginning of the story, when you meet him, he is being interrogated by a wizard in the land of the elves, which you will get to later after the flashback in the mines of Mordor. Or I think of it as a flashback because you're going back to understand his story in Mordor and then transitioning to where he is during the time of interrogation. And the verdict on this for me, it has very poor gameplay mechanics. It's frustrating. More than just once or twice, it's very frustrating. It was hard for me actually to capture gameplay, Brian, for this game to show on episode 8 because I died so many times. And I mean, there is more gameplay of me dying than gameplay of me actually traversing and going through the game. And that, yes, is in part of me being very bad in jumping puzzles, as you know from Destiny 2. I am just awful when it comes to jumping at any part, whether it's a raid, a dungeon. But in this, it really tested me as to how well I am. And let me tell you what, with the poor game mechanics, in combination with the jumping puzzles, I don't even know why I continue to play it. But actually, I know why I continue to play it. And that's going to be my next point. You play it for the story, not for the visuals. That's very important. I'm hoping that in future patches, the gameplay mechanics will be improved so that when you jump or you move from one ledge to another, it's not just going to result in an action you don't expect to where you go too much or too little and you fall and descend to your death at a depth at that. So Brian, looking at the gameplay here, are you in agreement with the reviews that have released for this, saying that this, alluding to that it's the worst game of 2023?
I mean, I don't understand why they would make this game.
It's different, yeah. It's a take on Gollum's perspective. So with the other Lord of the Ring games, you don't have that action you're looking for. Fighting. You're traversing lands, you're jumping, you're
playing like Splinter Cell with no weapons and Lord of the Rings themed.
I think it was ambitious to make a game in the perspective of Gollum. That can't be an easy feat.
I mean, I get it, and it's a novel concept, but I think it's a poor execution. I mean, he doesn't even look like Gollum. He looks like a monkey in the background of that video.
There are times that he looks similar to Gollum, but I have to agree with you. The eyes, I don't think, and even when they did the reveals, I don't think they did the eyes right compared to the movies. And I wonder how much time they took to work on the eyes that Gollum has. But I agree. Did not get that fully right. It does look awkward. But his movements, I will say, they did capture the movements very well. Any other thoughts, Brian, on this one?
No, I'm gonna call this one a. I'm not even gonna try it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will say if you can get past the visuals and want something that is story driven, wait for it on sale maybe, or just pick it up. If you are interested in understanding more about Gollum as a character, I would say pick it up. And one note I will make is you get to make decisions as Gollum or Smeagol, his other split personality. Gollum is the more callous and Smeagol is the more sensitive, and you interact with characters based on being Gollum or Smeagol and making those decisions. And I won't say that it's not you make a decision as Gollum, you have to do that every time. So as you can see here in the gameplay, when you're talking to the Candleman, who reigns over the mines, basically he's the leader for the mines there under Sauron. So you have to convince, if you want to make the decision of Smeagol, you have to convince Gollum and vice versa. And as far as playing the game, I haven't at least witnessed where making a decision of one versus the other makes a impact on later in the story. But I will say it makes a difference on the NPC's response to you. But let me know in the comments if you have interacted with the NPCs and you see a difference happen in the story. I will say with the DLCs as well, you get a lore compendium. And if you want to dive deeper into the areas of the game, there are descriptions there. And I really appreciate that as someone interested in Lord of the Rings to understand more about the lore. So lore is a bonus, the story is a bonus, and the graphics fidelity and visuals, not great, underwhelming. And yeah, we can wrap that up as our segment on Lord of the Rings Gollum.
Simple enough.